Well, hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jonathan, and this is Mr. Pearson Talks Books. It is the end of May, so I want to run through with you the 8 books that I read this past month. The first book that I read was a reread for me. It was something I had read a long time ago when I was much younger, and that is the book Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. Now, this is the story of 2 boys. One's name is Jim, and the other's name is Will. They live in this small town in Ohio, and toward the end of October, as they're getting close to Halloween, a carnival shows up, which is completely unheard of because carnivals usually only come during the summertime. And so, like young boys typically do, they got very excited for the carnival, not knowing what was going to go on. Well, it turns out that this is not an ordinary carnival. This is a carnival that actually preys on people, preys on their sadness, their anger, their more base emotions, I guess it is, including having a carousel that, if it spins one direction, will make you younger, and if it goes in the other direction, it will make you older. And Jim and Will sneak into the carnival one night and witness this happening, and suddenly they find themselves the I don't want to say victim, but they find themselves being hunted, being pursued. There we go, by the carnival owner and all of the people that are a part of the freak show, as it's known. And it's up to Jim and Will to figure out what's going on. And Will's dad, who is trying to come to grips with the fact that he is too old to be Jim's dad. At least that's how he feels. This was a rather interesting book. It was very poetic. It was a horror novel, I think is a good way to describe it, but it was a very poetic novel. And so a lot of the scarier elements, because I mean, if you think about it, had a lot of really terrifying elements, were kind of masked by the poetic language that Ray Bradbury used. I remember enjoying it when I read it the first time, and I enjoyed it this time, but not nearly as much as I thought I was going to. I think a lot of it probably played into the fact that I'm a big fan of the Walt Disney movie that came out, which had Jason Robards in it, I believe. Absolutely terrifying. This book was, like I said, it was okay. I think I just maybe wasn't in the right headspace. Maybe it'd be better if I read it in the fall. But it was one of the books that is on my 50 before 50 reading challenge. So I was able to get another one out of the way. The second book that I read or listened to, this was an audiobook for me, and that was a book called The Bug Bandits by Jenni Walsh. And this was a book that was recommended on Sean Stevenson's channel. He's at Sean Stevenson Books. Great guy. Give him a subscribe over on his channel. But this is about a girl who lives with her dad at a bug museum. And she is trying to come to grips with her best friend moving away and different things like that. Well, one day while she's working at the bug museum, she overhears 2 shady looking men who are contemplating breaking into the museum. And so the girl, along with her new friend, who has come in to help with some work around the museum, they come up with a plan on how they're going to stop the burglars from breaking in and stealing some of the rare and valuable insects. A good way to think of this is Home Alone at a bug museum. In fact, they take a lot of they take a lot of their ideas from Kevin from the Home Alone movies, except they don't really want to kill anybody. There was a funny part in the book where they actually looked up how dangerous were the traps that Kevin made, and they realized that Kevin would have actually killed the 2 guys probably about 15 times each. It kind of made me chuckle. Really enjoyed this book. It was a lot of fun. I'm hoping there will be a sequel to it, or at least I'll be able to find something else by the same author. After that, I read what has to be one of my new favorite Star Wars books, I do have a dedicated video to it, and that was Shadows of the Empire by Steve Perry. And this is a book that takes place in the time period between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, when Han Solo has been frozen in the carbonite and taken away by Boba Fett. And so Lando and Leia and Luke and Chewie are trying to figure out how to find Han and get him back. And while all of this is happening, we have Darth Vader, who is on a mission from the Emperor to kill Luke Skywalker. But at the same time, because Darth Vader knows that Luke is his son, he actually wants to protect him, keep him from getting killed. So he's kind of doing a double mission. There's also another character who is Prince Sizor. He's the leader of a criminal gang known as Black Sun, who has a rivalry with Darth Vader. And because of that, he's trying to kill Luke. So there's all these different political maneuverings and things that are taking place. This book was an absolute blast. We get introduced to a new character named Dash Rendar, who very much played the Han Solo role. And I hope that I come across him again. It kind of looked like he wouldn't be in future books, but it's Star Wars, so who knows? Great book. It's one of my new favorite Star Wars books. I'm sad that it took me 30 years to read it. After I finished that run, I read a middle grade mystery called I Know You Started It. Sorry, I'm looking off to the side at my notes. By Daphne Benedis-Grab. And this is the story of 4 middle school or high school kids who one day somebody starts a fire in one of the popular boys' lockers. And the 4 of them get called down to the principal's office to find out what they know about who started the fire. They get called down first thing in the morning, but then the principal gets called away and they have to come back later in the day. Well, everybody knows they got called down to the principal's office, so they decide they're going to solve the mystery before anyone starts to think that they are responsible. There's 2 boys and 2 girls. The 2 girls used to be best friends until something caused their friendship to fall apart. One of the boys is a brand new student in the school. He doesn't really have a lot of friends. And then the other one is the troublemaker who just knew they were going to blame the fire on him. Well, it come to find out that the person whose locker got set on fire, he is actually responsible for some cyberbullying. And so the 4 kids get together, and they not only want to find out who started the fire, but they also want to put an end to the cyberbullying that this boy Jonathan, that's a very unfortunate name, by the way, that Jonathan has been committing. This was a really fun book. It was had very strong Breakfast Club vibes, or maybe even some of those shows from the 90s, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where a group of kids get together. But it also had a really strong message about friendship and cyberbullying. But it wasn't overly preachy like some middle grade books that have this type of message do. I really enjoyed it. It's part of a series, so I need to actually go back and read the other ones. This was one that I Know You Started. It was one that my daughter picked up at her Scholastic Book Fair and brought it home, and I was very excited to read it. I hope she's going to read it and enjoy it. After that, I went for another book that was on my 50 Before 50 list, and that was Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. And this is the story of a young boy named Jim whose parents own an inn, and one day a kind of shady guy, I guess the best way to put it, comes into the inn, and from there things just kind of fall apart. There's a blind man that shows up, and after he shows up, the shady guy ends up dying. So they're going through his possessions to find out who he was and who they can let know about his departure, and they come across the treasure map. Well, Jim and a couple of the guys in town, the squire and the magistrate, or the squire and the doctor, they put together a crew to follow the treasure map. Part of that crew was a cook named John Silver. Voyage continues. The crew members that they put together turn out to be pirates, and the cook is the infamous pirate Long John Silver. And so there's a mutiny, and they end up on the island, and there's a battle, and all of these things take place. Come to find the treasure. It was a lot of fun. It was very different than I remember from the first time I read it. But I can understand why this book was a classic. It had a lot of excitement, a lot of adventure. If you are a fan of Pirates of the Caribbean, I highly recommend you check out Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. The next book, and I have this one I also have a video on my channel about. It's a new one from Erin and Entrada Kelly, and it's called The Second Life of Snap. And this is the story of a girl named Zuzu and her friends who live in kind of a dystopian future. They live in Texas, but things have gone badly, and so they live in a very dry and desert place where there's not a lot of water, and everything that they have is controlled by this corporation. And one day, Zuzu's father comes home to the trailer they live in and tells her that he's been let go from his job, and instead of a severance package, they give him this robot. A couple things happen, and Zuzu and her friends end up reprogramming the robot, who then begins to develop a personality and almost wants to become a person. And the rest of the book is spent on their adventures and what they are doing. It had very strong vibes of The Wild Robot by Peter Brown, or if you're familiar with the movie Big Hero 6 that Disney put out a number of years ago with Baymax, very similar. My biggest quibble with this book is it felt very unfinished. It was only about 160, 170 pages, and there were a lot of elements to the book. Without going into too many spoilers, there were things in the book that were unresolved. And so I'm hoping that this is the beginning of a series or a trilogy or something, because there were a lot of elements in there that didn't have a resolution. And so the book kind of ends, and it picks up with what could be a cliffhanger or an introduction to the series, but a lot of things didn't get resolved in it. So I ended up giving it 3 stars on Goodreads. I think 3.5 is probably better because I am a big Erin and Entrada Kelly fan. Love the things that she writes. After that, I read another fabulous book, and this was a middle grade horror book called Grin by D.W. Gillespie. D.W. Gillespie wrote a book called Give Me Something Good to Eat, which was one of my favorite books that I read last year. Very, very scary middle grade book about kids who go into an upside down version of their town to rescue one of the boy's sister. Well, in Grin, there's a boy, his name is Danny, and he goes to stay with his uncle who runs an arcade. And Danny loves video games, absolutely loves them. So spending a week with his uncle at an arcade where he can play as many video games as he wants to sounds like a dream come true. Well, on the first night there, his uncle tells Danny that he has come across a very special game that is very hard to find. And the game is called Grin. And it just so happened that on the trip to his uncle's house, Danny had been watching a YouTube video about this supposedly haunted video game called Grin. And then, lo and behold, there it is in the arcade. Well, this game starts to cause problems with the people who play it. And Danny, through help from some friends, including the YouTuber whose name is Mr. Griller, find out that this game has a dark past, and allegedly the soul of a serial killer is inside the game. And it kind of goes from there. And just like his other book that I read, there are some really scary and tense moments in this book. There's a scene that involves a giant pair of scissors, which is absolutely terrifying. There's a scene where a character goes missing, and it would appear that something bad has happened to him. Now, thankfully, it's middle grade, so the terrible things can't be too terrible. But I really liked this book, and I found out that D.W. Gillespie has another book coming out later this year, so I am very excited to grab that one as well. He is quickly becoming one of my favorite middle grade spooky book writers. And then the last book that I read, and this was an audiobook as well, That was The Body by Stephen King. And this is the story of four boys growing up in the 60s. All of them have some pretty traumatic things that have happened in their lives. One of the main character, his brother, went away to the army and then was killed in a training accident. The other boys either come from poverty or they've been abused by their parents for, there's just all kinds of really tragic stuff. And one day, one of them finds out that there's a dead body. And so the four of them say, you know what, let's go find the dead body. And so they set off on this journey. It's only about a day and a half, but they set out on this journey to find this dead body. And it was a fascinating story. Absolutely loved it. If you have seen the movie that came out in the, I think it was the 80s, by Rob Reiner, it's called Stand By Me. That movie is a very accurate and very faithful translation of the story. Really, really liked it. It was very nostalgic for me, which is weird because I didn't grow up in the 60s. I grew up in the late 80s and 90s. But for some reason, anytime I read a Stephen King book or story that's set in the 60s, I feel like I was a part of it. And I don't know if it was just because I was watching the movies when I was during that time. So they remind me of my childhood, but that's what it is. My only quibble with The Body is, I have two. One, it's a little overly sexualized. There's a lot of sexual references in the story, not necessarily between the boys or anything, just in the way that one of the characters describes things. And then there's a lot of language. And I think part of that might be just that these were 12-year-old boys who had learned some new words. And so they were using those words quite a bit. But it was definitely not one you want to listen to with kids in the car. So those are the 8 books that I read. There is one book that I am still currently reading. I'm about halfway through. Hopefully I'm going to finish it in June. But that is David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. I didn't really know what David Copperfield was about when I went into it. I just knew it was Charles Dickens and I wanted to read some Charles Dickens. So I picked it up, and it's the story of David who had a very, we'll say, traumatic or eventful childhood, with his father passing when he was before he was born, and his mother gets remarried to just an awful, terrible person named Mr. Murdstone, who sends him to go work in a factory. Well, then David runs away from the factory and goes to his aunt. And I'm skipping a few things here and there, but basically it's a very day in the life story of this boy, David Copperfield. And it's very, there's not a lot of big events that happen, at least not in the parts that I've read so far. So it can be a little bit of a slow burn. But I am still reading it. I'm enjoying it. It's Charles Dickens. How can you not? There were 2 books that I had to DNF this month. The first one being The Hadacol Boogie by James Lee Burke, which is a Dave Robichaux story. He is a detective down in Louisiana, and it is just the story of one night somebody drops a dead body on his property, and so he's trying to figure out who is responsible, who the victim was, and who was responsible for it. I normally love James Lee Burke's books, but this one was really heavy. There was a lot of just really heavy stuff, and examinations of human depravity and stuff. And I had just finished reading East of Eden by John Steinbeck, which is a very heavy book with a lot of examination of human depravity, and Something Wicked This Way Comes, which is a heavy book which talks about human depravity and their desires for different things. So I just was not in the right headspace for it. I needed a break from it. So I set it down. I may come back to it at some point. We'll see. And the other book that I did not finish this month was a book called Ghost Scouts Honor. And that's a story about some kids who live in Savannah, Georgia, which is very haunted. And they are a part of something called the Ghost Scouts. I read a little bit of it, and I'll be honest, it wasn't for me. It is very preachy, had a lot of different things. Girl had anger issues. Her parents are fighting. Just issue after issue after issue. It just was not something that I was enjoying. And there are far too many books to read, books that you just don't want to. So there you are. Those are the 8 books that I read in May. Most of them were great. I really did enjoy most of them. But I want to know, what did you read in the month of May? Did you read anything that you really enjoyed and you think that I should read? Or have you read any of the books that I read, and what were your thoughts on them? I know that Treasure Island and Something the Wicked This Way Come are both considered classics. Maybe you've read those and you really enjoyed them and you want to share that with me. Go ahead and leave that down in the comments. I'm going to post some videos up here. One of them will be to my 50 before 50 challenge, so you can see the other books that are on there. And then I will also put a link to my video about Shadows of the Empire, so you can see more thoughts on that book, and those will pop up. Those will pop up here shortly. As always, my name is Jonathan. This is Mr. Pearson Talks Books, and we'll see you next time.